Hello, my name is Kwame Gonza. A railway line that is going to connect three African countries, Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, and Zambia, to the Atlantic Ocean is going to be constructed and partly rehabilitated by the United States and Europe. Now, whether this railway line that is being constructed is going to be beneficial to Africa or is a continuation of the colonization process of the African continent, that is what we are going to examine. Greetings to everyone. My name is Kwame Gonza, and I'm Pan-Africanist. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I belong to Connect Africa and also the Africa Continental Unity Party, which I would encourage all of you to join and be part of the struggle to liberate Africa from the continued exploitation that has been going on for the last 600 years. Now, there's a railway line that is being planned, and this was presented at the G20 summit that happened in India. And this railway line moves from Zambia. It's supposed to connect from Zambia to Democratic Republic of Congo and all the way to Angola up to the Atlantic Ocean. And it is called the Lobido Corridor. I want us to look at what President Biden said about this project.
We're working in a private-public partnership as well to invest in the Trans-African Corridor. That includes a new partner, the European Union. President von der Leyen, thank you for making this very possible. Together, as part of this corridor, we're going to invest in a new rail line that will extend from the western port in Angola to the DRC, to Zambia, and ultimately the Indian Ocean. It's a project that's about far from just laying tracks. It's about creating jobs, increasing trade, strengthening supply chains, boosting connectivity, laying foundations that will strengthen commerce and food security for people across multiple countries. This is a game-changing regional investment, and both of these are huge steps forward, but they're far from the only ones. We're continuing to make big investments in infrastructure around the world. That includes a solar energy site and insulin manufacturing facility and electricity project right here in India. We're continuing to develop economic corridors across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. And together with our partners, we're working to mobilize the trillions of investment needed to close infrastructure gaps around the world, including the formation of a new investor forum that the United States will host in a couple weeks. Let me close with this. The world stands at an inflection point in history. A point where decisions we make today are going to affect the course of our future, all of our futures for decades to come. A point where our investments are more critical than ever.
Yeah, so as you have seen, the project which is going to be constructed in Africa, which I want to dig deeper into, is going to be led by the United States, working with Europe. They are the major group that are pushing this project with their so-called private sector, as it is always presented. And we will see whether really it is a private sector. Of course, we have seen in numerous cases that the United States gives its companies and corporations subsidies. We can talk of the CHIPS Act. We can talk of the Inflation Reduction Act. All these are aimed at financing United States corporations so that they can go out there to exploit the world. So when they talk about the private sector, do they mean it? But the project is being led by the United States and Europe, as we are going to examine further the modalities of this project. Now, as I mentioned, the project itself was launched at the G20 summit, which happened in India. There is two projects which were launched on the sidelines of the G20 summit, which happened in India, of course, where China was not present. And one of those projects was the project of building a rail and shipping, lines, or a rail and port projects linking India to the Middle East and Europe. Now, the other project that was announced was the Lobido Corridor project, which I already mentioned. And this is a project which connects Zambia to the Democratic Republic of Congo and to Angola, all the way to Lobido Corridor and the Atlantic Ocean, which extends to Angola. Now, this project, we want to really examine, is it going to be beneficial to Africa, or it is not going to be beneficial to Africa at all? And that is our duty as Africans, as Pan-Africanists, because it is important for us not to be sleeping while groups of people are stealing from the African continent. So let us look at the project in detail. Let us examine the project in detail. On the 13th of September 2023, this is when the news was published, because the announcement came after the G20 summit, to which Africa was admitted as part of the G20. Right now, it is the G21. Now, the Lobido Corridor, as you are seeing, is going to be financed by the United States and the European Union. And what they are saying is this, that the US and EU will launch the feasibility study for the Zambia line. Of course, there is currently no line which connects Zambia to the Lobido Corridor. There is an existing line between Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia, but there is no existing line between there is an existing line between Democratic Republic of Congo and Angola, all the way to Lobido Corridor to the Atlantic Ocean. But there's no existing line between Zambia and the Lobido Corridor project. So there is a proposed building of the line you are seeing between Zambia and then connecting to the Lobido project, or the Lobido railway line, which connects the Democratic Republic of Congo to Angola. Now let us examine what was said, because this news was published on the 13th September of 2023, which is this year, immediately after the G20. And officially it was published on the White House website, where they said that the EU and the US are teaming up to support the development of the Lobido Corridor connecting southern DRC and northwestern Zambia. This represents a powerful evolution of the partnership element of the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. And of course, President Biden also emphasized this when he was speaking at the United Nations, he mentioned this particular project. So this is why it is very important for us as Africans to pay close attention to this particular project. Now, they are saying that the European Union and the White House have teamed up to accelerate the expansion of the Lobito transport corridor by launching a feasibility study for a greenfield railway line between Zambia and Angola. So this is the line that will connect Zambia to the Lobito corridor, which is already existent. Like I mentioned, the line between Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Angola all the way to the Lobito port just needs rehabilitation. Okay? What they are saying that there has been a commitment by the two of them, by the three of them, Angola, Zambia, and Democratic Republic of Congo, to extend the Lobito corridor connecting DRC and Zambia to the so-called regional and global markets via the port of Lobito in Angola. Now, what they are talking about and calling the trade markets, global trade markets, of course, is the United States and Europe. We know that the United States, when it is talking about global markets or international community, it is talking about itself. Now, if you may ask, after 60 years of independence in Africa, why has it taken the United States this long to identify this as an important project? And of course, these are the questions that we are here to answer and examine in detail. As an immediate step, of course, the United States, committed itself to $250 million. It committed itself to $250 million for this particular project. What we also know is that the project, it extends almost 1,700 kilometers altogether. And the project, the United States has committed $250 million to it. Now we have other partners who have come up to contribute. And these partners are coming in form of a consortium which has been formed, the so-called Lobito Atlantic Railway. And this is a consortium between a Singapore-based trading and a logistics firm called Trafigura and a Portuguese contractor called Mota Engil, which is a railway contractor. It builds railways and infrastructure. And of course, a Belgian railway operator called Vectaris. And if you remember who colonized and brutalized our people in the Democratic Republic of Congo, you remember the name Belgium. So Belgium also has a stake in this project. Now, what is surprising about this project is that this consortium of Western companies and corporations, they own 100% of this project. The African people own nothing. And now what they are saying also is that this consortium is going to operate the project for 30 good years. They are going to operate this project for 30 good years. Now, these are the shares. Trafigura is going to own 49.5% of the project. The Portuguese contractor Mota Engil is going to own 49.4%. And then the Belgian contractor or operator is going to own the 1%. Now, where is the ownership for Africa? Nowhere to be seen. They are saying that in the overall, the Lobito Atlantic Railway, which is the consortium, plans to invest $455 million in Angola and up to $100 million in the DR Congo. This is on the rehabilitation. They say that this includes securing 1,555 wagons and 35 locomotives for the Angolan side of the corridor alone. Now, this is the project that has been proposed in Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, and Zambia. Now, one thing that we want to also look at, is this project really going to benefit Africa in any way? Is this project going to benefit Africa in any way? And that is a major question that we have to ask. And what is the purpose for this project? What is the purpose for this project? And that is what I'm coming up to next. Let us go to another website which published information about this project. Okay, another website published information about this particular project, and that website is called railtech.com. And in it they're examining what is in it for the United States and Europe. Of course, when the United States speaks in public and at the United Nations, when Joe Biden was speaking, he mentioned that this project is going to help Africa, is going to help supply chains. They use the word supply chains. This is a prominent word that is used very much. Supply chains. We are going to improve the lives of people. But really, what is in it for Africa in this project? This is what we want to examine in detail. What is in this project for Africa, and what is in this project for the United States? Now, let's get to it. If you look at the line, this is the line which moves, of course, from the Democratic Republic of Congo all the way to Lobito and the Atlantic Ocean. We see Zambia, the line which is broken, which is the approximate route of proposed Zambia-Lobito rail. This one is just proposed, but it has not yet been approved, and they are still carrying out feasibility study to see how possible it is. So this is the railway line which will run almost 1,700 kilometers. Now, they looked here and asked, what do the EU and the US have to gain for the building of this rail network? Because like I mentioned, for 60 years, we have been in independence. We have had independence, but the United States never came to build this particular rail. It never paid attention to this particular rail. Why now? Why is the United States coming in now, claiming that this particular infrastructure is going to be for the benefit of Africa and its strategy of helping Africa's infrastructure so that the African people can have access to these particular infrastructures and use them for development? This website is saying that once transport infrastructure connecting all three countries is fully operational, the Lobito corridor will enhance export possibilities for Zambia, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. I want you to pay attention to the word export possibilities. It doesn't say trade possibilities, but it will enhance all three countries. It will enhance the possibilities for them to export, or the export possibilities for Zambia, Angola, and Democratic Republic of Congo. It is not saying that it will enhance trade between these three countries. And of course, they are saying that the Democratic Republic of Congo, and it will boost regional circulation. Of course, they spoke about the regional circulation of goods and promote the mobility of citizens. EU and the United States, this is what it says. It says, but it is clear, the article is saying that it is clear that the two Western powers also have something to gain by investing in African infrastructure, by significantly reducing the average transport time. The new railway will lower the logistics costs and carbon footprint of exporting metals, agricultural goods, and the other products, as well as for future development of any mineral discoveries. And that is the point precisely. That is the point precisely. They say in a statement, this is what they said in a statement. So this is the big statement. But let us come to the real issue. Let us come to the real issue. It is not for nothing that the Lobito Corridor is named the Lobito Port. It's named after the Lobito Port, which exports the raw materials. This is the very important point. It is not for nothing that the corridor is named after the Lobito Port, which exports raw materials, or with the export of raw materials being one of the key drivers of the development. The Lobito Corridor covers the mining areas of the Katanga province of DRC and the copper belt of Zambia. The International Energy Agency projects that the demand for rare earth metals, for example, needed for electric vehicles, EV motors, and wind turbines will grow by 3 to 7-fold in 2040. So what they are saying is that the International Energy Agency has predicted that the demand for electric vehicles and wind turbines, clean energy, which is taking us to the third industrial revolution, which other people are mistakenly calling the fourth industrial revolution, will grow 3 times by 300% to 700%. So this is a lot of money. So according to the International Energy Agency data, total demand for copper and rare earth metals will increase by 40%, nickel and cobalt by 60 to 70%, and lithium by almost 90%. And this is the point precisely. This is the point precisely. We know that the Democratic Republic of Congo, it holds 70% of the cobalt of the world. We know that Zambia has a lot of copper and Congo also has a lot of copper. And we know that the new industrialization is being driven by electric cars. The United States and Europe, they seem to be behind. They seem to be behind China in the manufacturing of these particular important equipment. And of course, including the equipment for renewable energy, which are going to produce the clean energy. In the past, energy was powered by oil, and you saw that the United States was even attacking countries to take their oil. Today, the source of energy is the lithium, cobalt, and copper, which are building the new engines for the vehicles, because vehicles are now run on electric motors. They're going to be electric. And the source of the power is going to be batteries, lithium batteries, and we have lithium in this region. So this is the very reason why the United States is interested in building this. Simply because it connects, this railway line connects the mineral-rich region of Katanga and the copper belt of Zambia to the Atlantic, where the United States can easily ship off Africa's resources. That is the point precisely. That is the point precisely. So, or it tells you that all this talk that we have been hearing, all the talk that the United States has been painting, that we have been hearing, that the United States is trying to build a railway line to help Africa, It is not true. It is building to help itself. Now, I will show you where Angola is, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Zambia, as you can see. Democratic Republic of Congo is here, Zambia is here, and Angola is here. So they are shipping, they want to ship Africa's resources from this region to the Atlantic and send them to the United States. They want to ship Africa's resources from here, Angola, and send them to the United States with the ships. So this is what is going to happen with this particular rail. Ship Africa's resources to the Atlantic all the way to benefit the United States. And this is the tragedy. This is the tragedy of our continent, that we need to enlighten ourselves as Africans and understand what is going on across the world. Across the world. Now, I want to go deeper so that we can look at the United States strategy in its entirety when it comes to the Joe Biden strategy of engagement with the world. We remember that President Trump had withdrawn from majority of the world, from even the contracts and agreements which the United States had signed with the rest of the world. Donald Trump had disengaged from majority of those agreements. But when Biden came back to power, Joe Biden put the United States back into these agreements. You can talk of the Paris Climate Agreement. You can talk of the Iran nuclear deal. So there was a strategy of re-engagement with the world under Biden. And that strategy, of course, is being put out, is being planned. That strategy, the chief architect of that strategy is called Jake Sullivan, who is the National Security Advisor of Joe Biden. And in one of his speeches that he has been giving many across the United States, Jake Sullivan put out what he called the United States strategy of remaking itself a dominant economic power which it decides for the world. And of course, that included integrating the United States foreign policy with American middle-class interests. And this, of course, calls for rebuilding American factories and industry. And therefore, they came with the CHIPS Act, for example, and these were all his plans. The CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States. Now, this also called for re-engaging with all the other parts where they could possibly take resources from to rebuild the United States. And in particular speeches, he has even spoken about water and other material resources. I have been warning Africans that if we don't take careful, if the United States ever defeats Russia and defeats China, the one who's going to suffer the most is Africa. Even the water which we have in the African continent is going to be taken away, because they are talking about water security, and we have the Great Lakes region. And if you remember very well, this railway project is going through all the way to the Great Lakes region. They will ship off even the fresh water which we have in the lakes around this region. And this water issue, Jake Sullivan also speaks about it. And therefore, let us listen to him. Let us listen to Jake Sullivan and what he's saying about the issue of resources for the United States.
In fact, this weekend, I'll be in Saudi Arabia for meetings with its leadership. And my UAE and Indian counterparts will come to Saudi Arabia as well for meetings so that we can discuss new areas of cooperation between New Delhi and the Gulf, as well as the United States and the rest of the region, fueled in part by the comprehensive economic partnership signed last year between India and the UAE. And this can help us carry forward some very tangible initiatives that we think will be unlike anything that we have seen in the region in recent years. Similarly, last June, President Biden and other G7 leaders launched the Partnership for Global Infrastructure Investment, PGII, another maybe not so great acronym, to address enormous infrastructure needs in low and middle income countries and to meet the challenge of securing and diversifying global supply chains. Many of our Middle East partners, particularly in the Gulf, have now pledged multi-billion-dollar projects to PGII, aimed to advance strategic projects, from ports to rail to electricity lines to essential minerals, from Africa to Asia to the Middle East region. So when you look at things like I2U2 and PGII and a lot of the practical challenges I've discussed, I've reached a point in this speech where the emphasis on these kinds of elements from a national security advisor is a different kind of take on the role of the region in the world, the role of the region in advancing US interests, and the role of the United States in working with partners in this region on these challenges. But in the world I described at the outset of my speech, in a world of great power competition, in a world of accelerating transnational challenges, we have to increasingly look to the region as a source of the kinds of partnerships that will help us solve the significant problems of the period that lies ahead. Countries that can help us with diversified and resilient supply chains so that we're not dependent on any other country. Countries that can help us make the clean energy transition successful, both in terms of the stable supply of current energy and in terms of the rapid and expansive deployment of new clean energy. Solutions on everything from food security to water security that become so central, not just to problem solving around the world, but to the demand signal from countries that are getting in treaties from some of our great power competitors. So this partnerships piece of the strategy in the Middle East, from my perspective, is part of the answer to the question of why the Middle East still really matters. It doesn't necessarily matter based on the nature of things in 2003. But rather the nature of things in 2023. And these partnerships are aimed at that in an effort to help tangibly advance the interests of the United States.
So that is what I wanted us to see what the issues are at hand that are being spoken about when it comes to the African continent and the interests, or the so-called interests, of the United States in the African continent. The mineral resources, but even the water. God help Africa if Russia and China lose to the United States. The biggest group that is going to suffer at the hands of the United States is going to be Africa. Now, he's talking about water, he's talking about mineral resources for energy transition. And of course, this is the rebuilding of the United States that we have been talking about. Now, on the other side, we have another project which has been spoken about today. Just today. That project has been published, and is to connect again Zambia to the Democratic Republic of Congo. It looks like, from the sources, it looks like the building of a railway line, between Zambia and Angola will not be possible, or it will be much more expensive. So they are looking for much cheaper routes right now. They are looking for much cheaper alternatives to achieve the same objectives. And therefore, this is where this project comes in. Once again, they are talking about an $850 million investment whose aim is to fast track Congo's copper exports. And who is going to finance this project? Once again, this is a road project connecting copper and cobalt mines in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and the East African port, with which will significantly reduce the existing travel distance by over 150 miles. So they have engaged Felix Tshisekedi and President Hichilema of Zambia in these projects. And these men, with their intentions, which may be good, may be burying Africa unknowingly, and may be continuing the process of the extraction of Africa's resources, just like how it has been done in the past. Now, what they are claiming is that the company that is going to build this is a Mauritius-based GED Africa, which is backed by Duna Asfast, a Hungarian construction firm. They say that it is the one which is going to build this project. Now, what we are seeing, that while they are going to send Africa's resources using the Lobido corridor to the Atlantic, they also want to send some of the resources of the African continent to the East African coast. And where are these going? These are likely to go to Europe, to build Europe, because it is quite expensive. It would be quite expensive to take resources from the Atlantic and pass them, all the way to Europe. It could be quite expensive to transport resources from the Atlantic and take them to Europe, because we know that Europe is here. So they are planning to pass this through Tanzania and maybe send it to Europe. And some of them send them to the Middle East. We had last month that a Saudi Arabian company signed with the Congolese company, with the government of Congo, contracts to mine resources in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which are majorly for renewable energies. Now, again, what we are seeing is that the African heads of state are not learning once again. The African heads of state are once again not learning how the world is working. And they are continuing to sell Africa's resources for pittance, for peanuts. The African heads of state are once again not learning how the game is played. And this is the tragedy. This is the tragedy for the African continent. Because while the United States is taking Africa's resources on one side, and some are going to Europe, the Middle East is also planning to take Africa's resources using the East African coast. And all the companies which are building these projects are not Africans. And we don't see any share by Africans in these projects, in their operation. And so the same process that we are seeing is what happened during colonialism, the continued exploitation and extraction of Africa's resources. And that is what we are seeing even today. Now, when you look at what could have been the possible way forward for the African continent, of course, there is a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities that you can look at when it comes to the African continent. We can team up by ourselves, within ourselves, to build these factories. We do not need to wait for the United States or Europe for us to start working in this direction. We really do not need them to start working in the direction for the development of our continent. And I will show you why. Tesla is building or has built a factory in Nevada, and that factory costs $3.6 billion for the manufacturing of batteries or lithium batteries. They are building a factory at $3.6 billion. So this money, if we came together as Africans, we could marshal up resources within the African continent. Africa's economy is $3.5 trillion. We should be able to mobilize within our own selves, within our rich people, $3.6 billion. Ethiopia mobilized $4 billion to build the Ethiopian Grand Renaissance Dam. We can mobilize $3.6 billion to build our own gigafactories to manufacture these batteries. These are the possibilities. Now, this is not being done. Okay? This is not being done. So if it is not being done, what is the way forward by the current oils of set, or we, the African citizens? And I want to suggest something. We as Africans have come up, as the young people especially, and one of our colleagues and a group of African young people have created the Africa Continental Unity Party. I ask you to come and support the Africa Continental Unity Party. Come and support the Africa Continental Unity Party so that we can roll out a plan for rebuilding Africa by Africans. And that means reconstructing Africa with our own sweat as Africans, with our own resources as Africans, building projects which are going to benefit Africans. Projects like the Africa Railway Triangle Network Master Plan. This is the project. This is the African Railway Triangle Network Master Plan. This is the types of projects that we want to look at under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Now, the project whose purpose will be to connect the whole African continent will need around $100 billion. And these are the types of projects that we need to be engaged in. What the Africa Continental Unity Party is doing is that we are bringing together those young leaders across the world and across the continent, across the African continent and across the world, to be able to build a new Africa. This is the very reason why I'm asking you to join the Africa Continental Unity Party and be part of that movement that we are pushing forward to build the new desired Africa, or the Africa that we desire. Now, I will invite you to contribute to the Africa Continental Unity Party, or be a part of it, or even go out to the website and make a contribution, or join the Africa Continental Unity Party. Join the Africa Continental Unity Party. Let me put it here. This is an organization which my organization, Connect Africa, is also working with. I'm also just joining the Africa Continental Unity Party, and we are working together as young people in Africa to start our own movement, because we see that the older generation has misused the chance of transforming Africa in the shortest time possible. So the next generation has to take over. A new generation of young people has to take over the development of the continent, because we cannot wait anymore. The Africa Continental Unity Party is present in majority of the African continent and is coming up strongly. So go out there and join the Africa Continental Unity Party and make a contribution. You people know me. I have been around and pushing Pan-Africanism for the last 10 years since I got to know about Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And we have been doing a lot of research to find out how we can make a contribution towards a new Africa. Towards a new Africa. We deserve a new Africa, and we are going to build that new Africa together if we work together as young people. And of course, it may sound impossible until it is done, but all great things have been done by determined people. All great things have been done by determined people. So this is what we are determined to do as the new generation of Africans. Now go out there and reach out to the Africa Continental Unity Party and be part of the movement. Be part of the movement and support the work that the Africa Continental Unity Party is doing. Support the great work that the Africa Continental Unity Party is doing. The continent is not going to be served by anyone else, but it's going to be served by us Africans by working together. When we work together as Africans, then we will be able to serve the continent. So I will put the numbers here. I will put the numbers here for those who want to make a contribution and who want to join. I've put the website. The Africa Continental Unity Party is present in Ghana, is present in South Africa, is present in the Democratic Republic of Congo, is present in Nigeria, and this is a party that we are building that cannot be stopped. I have put the website for the party. I have put the website for the party for you to see. And then I've put the numbers also. I have put the numbers also. I've put the website, African SCUP, Africa SCUP. So reach out and join the movement so that we can work together. There's no one who's going to benefit apart from us if we work together. And there's no one who is going to rescue Africa apart from the next generation of young people, the next generation of young leaders. And we have to be purposeful. We have to be determined, because the behavior of the exploiters, the behavior of the United States is never going to stop. The behavior of those who seek to exploit Africa perpetually, continuously, endlessly is not going to stop, is not going to end until we do something about it. And that is what the Africa Continental Unity Party is about. That is why the Africa Continental Unity Party is here. So join the struggle. Join the struggle. Join the struggle to help the African continent and help ourselves to overcome the challenges that we are currently facing, and of course, all across the world. All across the world, the African continent and the African people are disrespected. We are exploited. You saw what happened to George Floyd. Very well, everyone saw that. So we can't change this condition without working together as Africans. We cannot change this miserable situation as Africans without working together. And this is the very reason I've asked you to join the Africa Continental Unity Party in this struggle that we are engaged in. We have the tools, we have the communication, we have the resources, much more resources than what our ancestors had in 1945, in 1791, when our ancestors were fighting against slavery in San Domingo in Haiti. They fought and they defeated France, Britain, and Spain with nothing. They had no businesses. So there's no excuse for us not to stand up as the young generation, the new generation of Africans, to fight for the continent in order for us to rescue it from the exploitation that it is experiencing currently. Now, I want you to take some time also and share the channel, invite other people to the channel. Our purpose is to build a new Africa, and we are purposeful when it comes to this. We are going to do it with a lot of determination. This is going to be done. We are not apologetic about what we want to do, about our intention. We are not going to apologize for wanting to build a new Africa, and we are not going to apologize for wanting to stop the exploitation of the African continent. For that, we are not going to apologize for it. And at the same time, we are willing to put our lives on the line for the good of the African continent. For the good of the African continent, we are willing to put our lives on the line. So this is very important. It's very important to understand that sacrifices have to be made in building a new nation. A Chinese railway minister said that in order to make a great leap, a whole generation must be sacrificed. So if we are talking about building a new Africa, we have to build it in its entirety, from the north to the south and from the east to the west, all the way through the central part of it. All the resources belong to Africa and the African people and those in the diaspora, on the continent and those in the diaspora. Our resources, as we are seeing the current trend, are being shipped off. Africa's resources are being shipped off and sent to benefit the West, the East, and now the Arabs also, who have been benefiting from them for the last 1,500 years. Everyone has been benefiting across the world. Even now, they want to bring the electric car revolution and benefit from Africa's resources, but Africa is the only one who is not benefiting. And why? Because of failure of leadership. Is because of failure of leadership that have left the continent open to exploitation. Now, what we want to do is we want to change that dynamic. We want to change the relationship between Africa and the Western world. This is what we want to do. I'll be coming here periodically to have these broadcasts and inform you what is happening across the continent. But most importantly, you have to contribute to the Africa Continental Unity Party, contribute to Connect Africa. Go out there to the YouTube channel, Connect Africa. We are there. We broadcast. Even this evening, we had a broadcast. We are trying to build a new Africa brick by brick, and we are determined to pay the price to accomplish this objective. Now, I want to thank you very much. My name is Kwame Gonza. Support the channel, support Connect Africa, support Africa Continental Unity Party on this journey that we are engaged in. Until next time, we meet again. Africa must unite. Thank you very much.